It says going live. We're live, allegedly. Okay, goodbye, TikTok. This was fun. Go watch my YouTube video. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Are we here? Are we grinding and grooving? Let's get this. Wow. I've been live for an hour on YouTube because usually I do a pre-show before the show goes out, and I figured I might as well do it here too. Even though I did totally screw up and released this video on midnight. For those who are not YouTubers, if you didn't know, when you schedule a video, first of all, if you set it to a premiere immediately, it lets everyone know then, which is why if you've been following me for a while, you'll remember getting alerts that like a video is going to premiere in 36 hours. So I have to schedule it first and then hit premiere a little bit closer to the actual premiere date. But if you don't physically go in and change the time of the scheduled release, it just assumes midnight. So guess what I forgot to do? And now my video went out at midnight. Hell of a shock to wake up and see 10,000 people had already seen it. Oh my God, that was just live for a guy who looks just like you. Just jumped from TikTok. Hey, I just saw it. Hey, I love that so many of you are the same people. In my head, these audiences are completely separate, but it makes total sense that it's the same. I asked too late on TikTok, but does Hibbert, the winged turtle, not a frog, have a backstory? Not to my knowledge. He just exists. I had a feeling that something like that had happened. Now, I will say on the Patreon, if anyone's on the Patreon, I do think I'm going to keep releasing that one on midnight. I think that that's fair because I can't figure out when to drop that in terms of between the YouTube episode and the after show. But I think if I just put it at midnight, you can watch it whenever you want because it's next week's anyway. I tried to warn you, but you were asleep. I know. I try to go to bed at a decent time, and look what happens. Are you planning to react to the original X-Men series? Not really. Not as of now, because I just watched it. Like before I had the idea to do this, I literally just watched it in advance of X-Men 97. So, oh, cool, Icon after show. Yes, you did. Oh, we got a peek of Patreon perks on YouTube. You did. What does the number 3 mean next to my name? I don't see that. I see it next to other people's names. I think it's like a gifter thing. Are people gifting me stuff? First of all, don't gift me things. You save your money. But number 2, no, it's XP. If anyone's interested in the rankings, and I don't know what this means, Sia Doctrine, you are actually number 1 now. I don't know, some of these usernames get cut off, but the Fantaz blank blank, you are tied for 1, but are listed as number 2. And Grandma Sally something, you're number 3, still tied for 1. 4 and 5, you guys don't get little titles, but you're still tied for number 1. I think it's based on how much you talk in the chat. Oh, well, that could do it. Is Marvel Epic Collection better than the Marvel Omniverse? Do I have Marvel Epic Collection? I would say no, based off my gut. I will say these are surprisingly really good. These are the Penguin classics, and these are really good, actually. Very nice. How do I become better? I guess just keep commenting. Damn, now I gotta change my name to Sally. It was fun being named after Catwoman while I was. It said Sally, okay? I don't know. I kind of assumed it was Celine. But you know, whatever. Is reading the comics worth it since I want to get into it, but I don't know where to begin? Yes, I would think so. My strat for getting into comics is seriously just getting in. Find a character you like that you know you like from any adaptation or whatever. Then find a book that character's in, read that book, find other characters you like, and repeat until you're like well integrated into comics. That's what I did. Any tips for reading the X-Men comics? I want to get into them and I don't know where to start. Mostly X-Men. Again, same thing. Though for X-Men, I will say, if you want some good-ass comics and you're willing to sit through some not great comics. Actually, you know what? No, I'd take it back. Just don't read the It's fine. Start on X-Men 98. That's the Sentinel's return. It's the kickoff of the Phoenix saga, not the Dark Phoenix saga. She has to become Phoenix first. Start on X-Men 98. Read until you get bored. But the longer you stick with it, the longer it's very good. And until you get to 276, which is when Claremont leaves. But that's over or almost 200 comics later. So, fall off when you want to fall off. But that run, undeniable. Thought on Grant Morrison, New X-Men. Very good. I have to reread it. When I first read it, I thought it was a little too 2000s edgy. I should give it another thing. How long was Jean dead after Dark Phoenix? It depends. Wait, let me see when Dark Phoenix happened. Dark Phoenix Saga Marvel Unlimited. This is where she dies. She dies X-Men. Spoiler alert, if anyone's interested. She dies in no, that's the Phoenix Saga. Where is the Dark Phoenix Saga? Hold on. She dies in X-Men 137. And that's 1980. And then X Factor 1 is, I believe, 1986. Yes. So she's dead for 6 years between Dark Phoenix and X Factor 1. Then she dies again in Morrison. I don't think she dies any time in between that. So she's back for 14-ish years, dies again in the early 2000s, and is again gone for a while. I read all the way through Muir Island Saga, and I looped in New Mutants and X Factor as well. It's kind of insane. I don't necessarily recommend it to everyone, but I had fun. I did the exact same thing when I read the Claremont run. I started New Mutants and X Factor when they both respectively started, and I had a blast. I think it's one of the best ways to read the X-Men. To be fair, in terms of true death, Jean's only died, I think, 3-ish times. It is a little overblown because they kept killing her just to bring her back the next issue. But truly, is the Phoenix creature named after the Phoenix Force in the Marvel Universe? No. Because the Phoenix is Jean, it's still the name she gave herself, if that makes sense. It's still named after the concept of a Phoenix. And this is something, I got into this with somebody on one of my ReaX videos in the comments. He was like, oh, in this version, it's just Jean's power. It's not Phoenix. Phoenix is a separate entity. Phoenix is a separate entity that is also Jean. It's kind of like Bruce Banner and the Hulk. If the Hulk was also just going around and immortal throughout all of time. She is the Phoenix, and the Phoenix is her, now and forevermore. Were you as disappointed in the fall of the House of X as I was? The Krakoa era was amazing up until then, in my honest opinion. I think the fall of X is the worst part of Krakoa, yes. Has anyone ever not come back that you wish did? As of now, pretty much everyone's back, to be fully honest. I can't think of a character that's really stayed dead. I didn't know you go live. I go live right after the Friday ReaX videos. So usually the ReaX video would have ended about 8 minutes ago. Who's your favorite kid of Magneto? Currently, he only has one, so Polaris. What do you think about the DC's Finest books? I have not read them. I just want AOA, Exiles Morph, and 616. That is a take that you have. What's your Mount Rushmore of comic book villains? Villains? We're doing this the way, which is the first Mole Man. That's George Washington. Jefferson, one significant fact, undeniably impactful thing, one Galactus. There we did. The Galactus saga is important. There, so we have there's our Washington and Jefferson. Roosevelt was the current. Who's the current, actual big Thanos, big bad. And my personal favorite, we're gonna go honestly, Magneto. And that's a pretty good Mount Rushmore. I think this is the best system to actually make Mount Rushmores. So what did we end up with? We ended up with, I only did Marvel. So actually call this Marvel villains. Because I guess otherwise you got to do Joker and I don't know who's the first Superman villain. But for Marvel villains, Mole Man, Galactus, Thanos, and Magneto are pretty solid. Doom's the obvious one missing, but I think you can make the same argument that on Mount Rushmore, there are a few obvious ones missing. So, yeah. Did it. Rachel is the Phoenix Jesus. It is. So, Well, no, actually, Hope's the Phoenix Jesus. Rachel's a completely other thing. She's the crone. So here's what it is, guys. The Phoenix is merging two different ideas. One, at this point, because it's been a bit of Phoenix lore, they've tried to tie it all together. But one is just the Holy Trinity, where Jean is the father, mother, Hope is the son, daughter, and the Phoenix is the Holy Spirit that binds them. The other is doing, what is it, maiden, woman, crone? I'm getting this wrong. What are the three fates? It's like Clortho, crone, maiden, and mother. That's what it is. So Jean's mother, Hope is maiden, and Rachel is crone. And so that's where Rachel shows up as Queen Ascani. That's just an overcomplication because, again, so much different lore. Those are fates? Yeah. Those are the three fates. And they have names. I read the Piers Anthony books when I was a little kid. Clortho, Lytris, and Atropos, who control the metaphorical thread of life. I know some stuff. X-Men, Evo, FMK, oh, fuck Mary Kill, Goth Rogue, Punk Wanda, and Toad. Well, first of all, my apologies to Rogue. We're going to have to kill her just for safety. Punk Wanda would have to be Mary, and I'd fuck Toad. Are you following the most recent What If run? Like, what if Kitty Pretzel with Phoenix Force slaps? I'm not, but that's funny. I now want to see Teen Titans Raven take on Jean Grey Phoenix. I think Magic is the more parallel to... Again, I'm a Raven, so we will have to see. Honestly, I think the Logan Scott Jean love triangle needs to be retired. I like how Coco and Play they were having a polyamorous relationship. Me too. I do think, like, to be fair, it is like a largely overblown thing, and also largely made up in the comics themselves. Like not like in the way that people didn't read the comics and so they make it up, but like later comics made up that this had ever been a thing. It's like in the 90s they start referencing, oh, you know, that classic love triangle between Jean, Scott, and Logan, and it's like that was not a thing. When Jean dies in the Dark Phoenix saga, like she hates that man. She's literally yelling at him. She's like, "Fuck you! You think you're so fucking smart? I hate your guts," and then dies. Ooh, OG Teen Titans reacts when? When we finish, either next year or when we finish this up, X-Men Evolution, because X-Men Evolution is going to finish Thanksgiving week, which means we have about a month of time between when it would like make sense spiritually to start a new era in the new year, or when it would just make sense logically. I still got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'm very scared if someone else reacts to Teen Titans, though. I'm not as scared of someone reacting to Wolverine the X-Men, but I really don't want to get got if I have someone launch a channel reacting to Teen Titans that's really popular right before I do. Which X-Men character shall I draw? I'm bored and I got all my art stuff out. Artie Maddox. Draw me a little Artie. How do you like the Witch Breed of Marvel 1602? I liked them as for what it was. Wolverine the X-Men is the only season, so I'd probably be easier to do between Evo and Teen Titans. Oh, you know what? That is true. I could do it all. No, but I wouldn't be able to. Because Wolverine that season, 6 episodes. Which is half of as long as it is. List of Wolverine and the X-Men episodes. Yeah, it's 26 episodes. Teen Titans altogether is how many episodes of Teen Titans? Yeah, Teen Titans altogether is 65. So it is about half of Teen Titans. And so I'm going to do Wolverine the X-Men on Mondays, Teen Titans on Fridays. When we finish Wolverine the X-Men, we're going over to the X-Men anime, and that should probably even us out. Your reaction is more like episode got me hyped for some specific episodes coming up this season 4. No spoilers. I'm very interested. I'm almost done with season 4. I got 3 episodes left to watch. I filmed for Patreon, which is out now. But Which non-X-Men character would you like to have seen show up in this X-Men cartoon? Non-X-Men character. I think Iron Man would have been fun. I think he could have fit in easily with like the Warren of it all. I'm trying to think of like a villain that could have been neat to see them go up against. I'm blanking. Your actions are my first time watching X-Men Evolution. Well, hey, I've only just gotten to X-Men. I'm not going to say 2 weeks ago, and I've binged all your movies and nearly all the shows. Tism going strong. Hey, that's how you got to do it. You're going to react to Wolverine the X-Men. That's my favorite X-Men series and my favorite Cyclops designs. It was my favorite X-Men series for most of my life. X-Men 97, I do think, beat it out. And this show is a lot better than I expected. I kind of thought I was going to be ragging on X-Men Evolution. I didn't expect it to be so good. So I'm excited to see if it's still my favorite. But I do have a lot of love in my heart for Wolverine and the X-Men. Did you watch Spider-Man Homecoming? I really loved it. I did. The movie that came out like 10 years ago? Yes. Big fan of it. Power Pack actually would be a great... Power Pack or the Fantastic Four showing up in an X-Men cartoon would be fantastic. Spider-Man freshman year is what you're talking about. And no, I've not actually seen that. Oh, it's not even called Spider-Man freshman year anymore. That was what it was called originally. I love how X-Men Evo Wanda looked like a Romani actress from The Craft. Did she? That's crazy. I didn't care for Marvel for most of my life. So my best friend gave me 2 comics, which made me read them, and I stumbled across Gambit and knew there was no going back. That's the way they get you. Villain-wise, I'd say Annihilus would have been cool to see in the show. Annihilus would have been crazy to see in the show. The little fucking robot bug man. Wolverine the X-Men has the best Emma Frost. Wolverine the X-Men has the only Emma. She's probably in 97. Yes, she's on the Krakoan Council in 97. I don't think she's in the animated show, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. The thing with Emma is Emma gets rectified in Grant Morrison's in 2001. So that's why the 90s show and X-Men Evolution don't include her. She's not like in the role we more associate Emma with today until after these shows start. Emma's in the Dark Phoenix Saga. Yes, like in the comics. She's in the Dark Phoenix Saga in the show too. That's my B. She is the comic, yes. She's the original series, but she's just a villain. Okay. Well then, yes, she's there as a villain in the original show. I feel Emma's very hard to introduce early on. I don't, because I think she has been, like, people forget how old of a character Emma is. Emma's like from the 70s. She actually premieres, I think, in the exact same issue as Kitty Pryde. She's been around for a bit. I mostly have my comics knowledge from you and my best friends rambling. Well, that's what we're here to do. As someone who has been into comics all of my life, I've never actually read any X-Men comics. With that said, where would you recommend to start? X-Men number 98. You could start at 94 if you really want to, but I'd start at 98. Does anything have the Stepford Cuckoos? Show-wise, I don't think so. The Cuckoos are hard to introduce. The Cuckoos are a harder concept. They might be in 97 for like a second, but that would be the only place for them to be. The Gifted also has them, but in terms of cartoon. The Gifted also only has 3, right? They don't do all 5. The way to introduce Emma in X-Men Evolution actually would have made sense in 2001, and it would have been her as Mystique's role. Mystique, love her to death, does not make sense to be doing anything she's doing in this show, especially in the early seasons. The Brotherhood are the Hellions, which is Emma's team. The place they live could easily have been the Massachusetts Institute, which is the school Emma ran that she regularly tried to get the New Mutants to like pivot to, and succeeded at one point. She got all the New Mutants to move to the Massachusetts Institute. Like, it could have been that very easily. Because when they made the New Mutants, they did the thing that all like teeny shows do, where you have the good kids and then you have the equally bad kids. And that was the Hellions, and that was Emma Frost was the parallel to Xavier. And she was more straight up villainous at the time, but also like kind of already getting redeemed. That would have been how you include Emma. I think instead of Bayville, you make it the Massachusetts Academy, and you have her be the principal, which is what she was in the comics, and you have her secretly have her own team of superheroes, or supervillains rather, in the Hellions, which would have been their version of the Brotherhood. Like that would have been the biggest layup ever for to get Emma in this show. And they just didn't do it. This is before also any sort of like Cyclops, Jean, love triangle. All of that would have been introduced after Evolution came out in like 2001 to 2004. So that would have been the layup. Do you think Destiny Irene is coming back? I keep waiting, but I haven't watched the show before watching along with this, so I'm losing hope. Spoiler, if you've seen, I think the one that's on Patreon right now, you know the answer. Have you thought about doing Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes along with Wolverine and the X-Men, because a lot of the fandoms group them in the same universe? I did not know this until recently. I really want to do one Marvel, one DC, so I'm not going to do two Marvel at the same time, but I might react to Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes eventually. If the James Bond had the Hellions, I think the Hellions take Lance's place in the story would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, but also that did happen in the comic. It would be Thunderbird, or not Thunder, Warpath, who defected to the New Mutants. Like that's it. It is just the Hellions. It is. It took until Boom Boom showing up for me to figure it out, but like that is what they're doing. Is Destiny still called Irene? Because I just usually call her Destiny. She is still called Irene. Would you ever react to Justice League or Justice League Unlimited? Everything's on the table. I think eventually I do want to break out of doing just superhero shows, but right now everything's on the table. Earth's Mightiest Heroes is refreshing next to the MCU because it gives me a good Hawkeye. A good Hawkeye and a very good Miss Marvel. I loved Carol in that show. Most OP mutant. Probably Jean at this point. A Spectacular Spider-Man reaction list. It's in consideration. All the classic shows are in consideration. Hot take, you should do a special and just do the Avengers Phineas and Ferb episode. Oh, that would be cute. I want Warpath and More Things, one of my favorite Marvel characters. He's great. Are you going to bring back the old channel format, i.e. rejects after reacts? Or I intend probably never rejects again, to be fully honest. Those videos never did well, and they took way too much effort to make because I had to read every appearance of a character. And it was essentially just me making a Wikipedia entry for them, which I never wanted to be an explainer guy, you know? Video essays I like because there's more analyses involved, and then reactions are fun because they're like comedy, but I don't want to be the guy who just was word vomiting a Wikipedia on the internet. That's just not my style of thing that would bring me joy. But that all said, I intend to try and go back to video essays, both for comics and film. I used to make film content. Who remembers that? In the future. I just have to find a way to get these content out more regularly. My original idea for reactions was that I would have a way to post every single week, because that was something I was really struggling to do with the video essays, and still make one video essay a month, which is what I was about averaging beforehand. Then, stupidly, I decided to make 2 reaction videos a week, which meant that it took me about as much time as it did to make the one video essay, and now I only make reaction videos. I am hoping to find a more streamlined way that will let me make my reaction videos per month, and then make at least one video essay per month. But we will see. Thoughts on the recent Phoenix stuff with Jean's sister? I did not read it because it made me mad in concept. I just watched your Hoodwinked vid. Thank you. I really liked that video, and I wish that that I had done better in making it. I completely understand the VX thing, but I'm glad you made the ones you did. The Lee Forrester video is part of what convinced me to start reading X-Men. That's genuinely so sweet. I'm really happy that happened. What mutants would you want to see be on the first MCU X-Men team? Any that have already been together in a comic. How do you think they can introduce Betsy Braddock's Psylocke into X-Men Evolution universe, since they originally planned to introduce her in the show? Introducing Betsy Braddock would have been if Risty was real. I think that is, like, that's just would have been Betsy. She's very easy to do. It's only if you want to also have her be Asian and do the quantum of it all where things get dicey. If you were okay with just a white British girl, it would have been have Risty be real, have Rogue bring Risty to the house like she does, and then have Risty have latent mutant powers that let her stay at the X Mansion, and then you just add a new cast member as Rogue's friend for the rest of the show. I think the real issue with having a Betsy type is that you have Jean already, and they have the same powers, and it's a little redundant to be on the same team. This is part of the issue. This is why I keep saying whenever people ask me about what team I want on the X-Men at the time, it depends on, I want it to be characters who have been together in the books, because the books are a series. It is a chain of cause and effect that, like, I think a lot of people don't take into account. Where Jean leaves the X-Men, Betsy becomes the new telepath. They're not serving at the same time. And I think that's something that gets lost a lot. Same thing with Scott leaves the X-Men. Storm becomes the new leader. Here, they're both on the team, and that just means that Storm gets the shaft 90% of the time because they're all Cyclops stories. And I think that's your issue. Who's your favorite X-Men Evolution character so far? Toad. You know it's Toad. Love Toad. Quantum existing is literally an object to be used to make Betsy more interesting is super fucked up. Yes, if you word it like that. I think the better take is making Quantum a character was good. Like, Quantum is truly and effectively a mistake. It comes from Fabian Nicieza not reading the issue where Betsy is transformed to look Asian and assuming there was a body swap and then creating the story of a body swap. And that's why it doesn't make any goddamn sense. But, like, hey. Betsy's completely different. She has a butterfly psychic face when she uses her powers, and, well, that's it. Exactly. I love Scott, but it sucks how much his presence keeps people from adapting Aurora well. That's what you said, like, you gotta do it in turns. Like, that's why in my perfect world, we would start with Scott. Scott would leave, we'd get to do the whole Madeline arc, and Storm would become the leader of the X-Men. Like, that would be, you gotta be able to buy in to the fact that growth will happen in a movie or an adaptation, you know? I feel like so many people see the initial slate and are like, well, fuck this thing. They don't have my character I like. It's like, you gotta be ready for them to come later. Think they can just make Betsy Asian from the start without doing any of the body swap thing from Quantum. Well, that's where you get to what the person was saying earlier, of Quantum being just an object to make Betsy more interesting. Because Quantum is, at this point, a completely different character that you would just eradicate from the story and from any chance of being adapted if you just make Betsy Asian. So the option is that you can get rid of Betsy entirely and just do Quantum, but then you've gotten rid of Betsy entirely, and people are going to be mad about that as well. This is where the whole problem lies. And it's why I think the character has struggled to be adapted. It's also Marvel Rivals, if you notice, just didn't do any of this and adapted the Demon Days version instead. You being anything for Halloween, I'm going to go as Constantine to at least one party. What non-superhero stuff do you want to react to? I'd like to get to a point where I also just react to what's popular, you know? A lot of animation. I love animated things, and I would love to stretch the cartoons beyond. Clone Wars was always on my list. People know that it was almost what I did. And then someone, I think in a live, pitched X-Men Evolution, and I was like, oh, that's actually so much smarter. And I am glad I started with the X-Men. It's good to segue the brand. But Clone Wars has been on the list. Any other? Adventure Time. I've never seen that. Regular Show. I've barely seen that. Stuff like that, you know? Glee. I still think Glee, the reaction to my first episode of ReaX where I mentioned Glee was so funny. I still think it'd be fun to do Glee. What's your favorite character change in X-Men Evolution, and what's your least favorite? Ooh. My favorite character change, and I talk about this a bit, again, and I think the one that's on Patreon right now, is genuinely everything with Toad and Avalanche. I think this show turns Toad and Avalanche into characters that could have had genuine impact on the world, which is just not what we have in the comics. I think everything about Toad and Avalanche are peak. To be fair, Wanda, it seems, comes from this show. Like, this is stylization of Wanda, at least according to the creators who I talked to at Comic-Con. They believe they came up with this, and the comics adapted it after. That would be crazy. Ever watched Young Justice? Only the first few episodes. I talk a bit in my first ReaX episode that I like didn't watch the DC cartoons out of loyalty to these X-Men cartoons. So it'd be nice to go watch. That's what I'm going to watch Teen Titans and learn. Least favorite change up is probably Storm. I don't like Storm as a teacher / assistant to Xavier. I think that's stupid, and it robs her of all of her best dynamics with the other cast members. Because I think there's a thing, and not to get too serious, but I think there's a thing where because she's a Black woman, people think of Storm as being much more adult and much more mature than the rest of the cast, and she's not. She's a peer to them in all of the same, like, has all the same foibles that they do. She's best friends with Jean. She's got a weird allure sort of thing with both Logan and Scott. She's better off with Logan. Like, Logan's her real romantic pairing sometimes, but Scott, like, is hinted at. Like, and she's messy as fuck. Like, she's a very nuanced, complicated character who is more prone to like anger and shit, and like, a depth of emotion beyond like being a nun, which is how I feel like they present her often. And I think that that's the issue. There's a very good arc in the comics where she has to take over as leader and is basically like, fuck this shit. If you watch my video about does Storm kill, I get into a little bit, but she literally at one point, Xavier like mentally reaches out to her and is like, hey, can you come down here? And you see her be like, it's your fault that I'm in this mess, you dumb bald man. And she throws a knife at the psychic projection. It's so good. And I feel like we lost all of it. And to the point that they even aged down Forge and they didn't age down Storm. That's her main love interest. We lost everything because they refused to age this woman down. And I get you needed teachers. I don't mind Beast being a teacher, really. But Storm, we lost so much of the character from it. It's weird that X-Men Evolution seemingly aged Storm up so they could give her a nephew and add some other Black hair to the cast, only to mostly injure them both. Yeah. I mean, I've personally talked to the guy who like created Spike about how he like really wanted to have a Black male character on the team, and that's good. Do something with him. I mean, you put him in and then you didn't do shit. So it's like, oh, well, now we got 2 Black characters shafted. Storm was aged down in Ultimate X-Men. Do you like her there? Oh, in the comic, like the Peach Momoko one? Yeah. I don't think that's supposed to be Storm. Like, I don't think May Storm is literally Storm, but I do love May Storm. And it's the same thing as what I was saying about the foibles and stuff earlier. Is like putting the X-Men as teens is a great way to excuse a lot of the more soap opera-y hot-headedness of the X-Men as a team. Because they're teenagers. They haven't figured it all out yet. It's a little weirder when they're 35, truly. But Storm is the same thing. She could have been a great character in this show. She would have been a lot like what Rogue ends up being. Because they changed Rogue's personality a lot as well. I think if Storm had been on the cast, that would have been Storm's niche. And we would have maybe had Rogue be a bit more, well, like, not boom boom, well, like Kitty, honestly. Like that more upbeat, rambunctious vibe would have been more Rogue from the comics. Yeah, that's what I guess I would say is get rid of Kitty. Kitty's great, but like if Kitty's Rogue and then Storm's and then Rogue is Storm, then it all lines up, I think, better for the comics. I'm in 1610. Then I do not remember her being younger. Do you know about the X-Men anime? Yes, I was just saying I plan to react to that after Wolverine and the X-Men. I've never seen it, but I have heard of it. Who is better for Scott? Jean? Who is more interesting? Emma. I would argue both is Jean. I think Scott and Jean are like a true OTP for me. I like them a lot. Emma, I don't think is more interesting for him. I think it was good at the time. I think it was good that Scott left Jean for a while and had a different girlfriend. But I think at the end of it all, he's going back to Jean. And I don't think Scott's good for Emma as like a character. I don't think that she gains a lot from being Scott Summers' other girlfriend. Everything else they do with her character recently pushes her, I think, farther. Now, it is a soap opera, And so you need a love interest. And I think that she probably needs somebody that she can be in a love tangle with, but I don't think it needs to be Scott anymore. Do you address the early post? Yes, it was a mistake. I'm sorry. Fair enough. I do love Grant Morrison by My Empires. I love the Grant Morrison one as well too. I'm just saying, like, again, and thinking of this as like a grand story of these characters, I think it's good that Scott and Jean didn't just stay together from high school on. I think it's good that they split and that Scott has this other relationship that meant a lot to him. It's just not where I think he needs to be for the rest of his life. It's kind of why I'm also on, like, I wouldn't hate if they one day announced Rogue and Gambit were getting divorced. I would have faith they'd come back together, but I would be very interested to see what the story of them being split would be again. And I know that's very controversial. Even in my like most recent Gambit video, I had someone like, when I was just explaining the dumb arc about him becoming death, someone ranting about how it's like sabotage to get him away from Rogue. I'm just saying I'd be open to the story. It could suck. It could truly suck. But like, I'd like to see it. Would you react to the next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow movie? Maybe. I love that movie. Maybe. Do you have a favorite niche X-adjacent character you would love to see adapted more? All of the Starjammers are really my answer to that. Funnily enough, the Scott Emma stuff in New X-Men feels like Grant Morrison bringing back Scott as someone with a struggling marriage after Inferno tried to retcon away the Maddie stuff is not his fault. Definitely. I think a lot, well, to be fair, I don't think Grant read Inferno. I don't think that, I think a lot of New X-Men is Grant hasn't read any X-Men since like the Phoenix Saga. But that's still, I think it does work. It is very interesting to have to play with the sins of what Scott Summers did with Madeline. Are you going to watch Wolverine X-Men After Evolution? Yup. I just subscribed to your Patreon. Thank you so much. Love your content. Always make my day when I watch your videos. Thank you so much. The Patreon has grown so much since this ReaX channel started. I think I used to have like 20 people in it. I made like $100 a month, which was great because I barely posted. And then I started doing the ReaX videos once before, and now we're up to like almost 1,000 people in there. Genuinely mind-boggling, but it means I need to post more Patreon exclusives. And I intend to. I'm so sorry. Thoughts on Exceptional X-Men run by EVU and currently going. I'm personally loving it. I've read through the Sinister arc, and that was very good. Do you think they should restore Wanda and Pietro being Magneto's kids? No. I think at this point it's ridiculous. I'd restore them being mutants. I don't need them to be his children. I think them being his adopted children's even weirder, to be fully honest, because they never had that relationship. But right now, the grand story of Wanda and Pietro is not his kids, find out they're his kids, find out they weren't actually his kids after all. We're done. I cannot go back to actually, whoops, never mind. We are his kids. Twist. Like I can't do it. I just want to say that if you don't lie, sign off gives me a sensible chuckle every time. Well, thank you. I truly did not plan for that to be my sign off. I said it the first time, I think. It may not even be in the first video, maybe the second one or something, but then everyone liked it. So I was like, I'll just keep saying that because I don't know how to end these fucking things. I don't know how to start or end these videos. I think X-Men Evolution is a bit harder because it's like impossible to predict what these plot of these episodes are going to be. So I try to do an introduction and then it just doesn't work. So I've started just saying silly things at the beginning, but Maddie was never written well after the Alaska incident too. Maddie is perhaps the character most screwed over by editorial in all of comics. Maddie made perfect sense in the original From the Ashes arc, where she didn't even look like fucking Jean. Like the whole point of From the Ashes is that Mastermind is making people think she looks and acts like Jean, and she's just got like red hair. But regardless, Maddie made perfect sense as a way to write Scott out. And everything editorial has done since to keep Scott in the action has screwed Maddie over like nobody else. And she has been fully destroyed. They've kind of brought her back. I think genuinely, no small thanks to the Cerebro podcast. I think him generating tons of love for this character has made her a more commodifiable? I don't know. A hotter property to use. I think without that podcast, she doesn't show up in X-Men 97. Truly. Like, Inferno, to my knowledge, was never one of the more loved crossovers of the Claremont run, but it has become supremely famous. And good on him. Like, everyone should strive to have that much of an impact on their glupshitto's life. Is the sublime thing still canon for why humans hate mutants? Yes, but the sublime thing was always a metaphor, so I feel like it doesn't matter. Who's your favorite and least favorite character designs in X-Men Evolution? Favorite character design has got to be Rogue. Such a bold take for Rogue, especially only 3-4 years after the animated series ends, you bust out Goth Rogue. That's just insane. Least favorite, it's any of the Brotherhood's supervillain outfits. I can tell you that. Avalanche's supervillain outfit and Toad's is just ridiculous. But in general vibe, it might honestly be Boom Boom. I feel like it's just so bland compared to everyone else's. Or Bobby and Multiple Man also look identical. I can never tell which one of them is talking. It was funny in hindsight how this version of Mystique was just being school buddies with Rogue while she was torturing and planning the death of her friends. Yeah, it's hilarious. The entire Risty plot is so funny because, first of all, why does Risty seem like she's in love with Rogue? Even after you do the reveal, you have her blushing and looking into her binder and stuff when Rogue's nearby. Jean, everyone goes to the dance. They don't talk about who they're going to the dance with. But everyone goes to this dance. And at one point, Risty is talking to Jean and is fully oh, Rogue's here. And Jean's okay, bye, have fun. All of the X-Men interact with Risty as Rogue's girlfriend. And it's just absurd. I need them. They're never going to have this conversation. But I need a conversation where all of the X-Men learn that not only is Risty Mystique, but double whammy, Mystique is Rogue's mom. Because that's so crazy. It's still crazy they had her date her son. I don't even know if that got retconned. What does that mean? Date her son? Nightcrawler? She never dated Nightcrawler. What is your favorite indie comic? Saga. If you can count Image as indie, but I think you kind of have to. For the MCU, do you want the main X-Men to be younger, in high school, or would there be older and be the teachers? I would like the school to not be a literal school, and I feel like I'm going to lose that fight, but my favorite era of the X-Men, the school is not a real school. There's not just 100 random kids around. It's the X-Men operating out of the Xavier Mansion. And that's what I would like. The X-Men 100% believe Rogue and Misty were dating. Clearly. In your own words, Mystique is a crazy person who does insane things. What did I say that in? I remember saying that. Is that the what the fuck about Fox? I have no clue how they're going to fit Wolverine's memory loss of Weapon X with the story, with the way they got adamantium in the MCU. I never even watched that movie, partially because of the whole Sabra thing, but also, what do you say? Spitefully, because it was allegedly introducing adamantium, and I hated that idea. Did you watch Fantastic Four First Steps, and did you enjoy it? Yes, I did, and I did. I will say this, guys. The MCU X-Men movies, I'm not going to be a fun creator to follow when they come out. I'm going to be so annoyed. I already know they're not going to be for me. And I'm going to try and be cordial to everyone, all the new fans that are going to come into it. But I know I'm going to hate those movies. Oh, Maddie dated her son. Yes, that happened. She dates Nate Gray, I believe, which is an alternate universe version of her son. I think they could just say that adamantium has been around for a while and they hit the mother lode when Cersei turned Tiamat into adamantium. Sure, whatever. Thunderbolts is one of the best MCU films in years. I don't know about years. I think in general, a lot of the MCU films are fine. I just think they're not very connected to the books. And for most of that, I don't mind. I'm just specifically pretentious about the X-Men. But I didn't care about any change they made to Yelena's story, I think it's a little weird that Nat's father figure is Alexei, who's her husband. I think making Red Guardian her dad is kind of crazy, but that doesn't bother me as much as if they made Gambit Storm's dad. I'd be like, what are we doing? Actually, that was a bad example, but you know what I mean. In the comics, who's better for Scott, Jean or Emma? I would argue Jean every day. I think I prefer it being an actual school, so then we can have older guys be the teachers and the younger ones, Rogue, Gambit, Kitty, etc., can take center stage. Again, I want them to be the same age. I would like Kitty to be much younger. Like Kitty could be like 13 again, and that would be awesome. But I think this mentality of Rogue being and Gambit and Kitty being a different generation than the other X-Men is like kind of what I don't want. I'd like them all to be vaguely 20 something together, if possible. I just don't need, all like Onyx and Anole and Rainboy and Hindsight and everyone else running around the fucking school. What's your favorite change the X-Men movies introduced? Sabretooth and Wolverine being brothers. Gambit Storm's dad is like the worst example. Yes, I know. I realized 10 seconds after. It would still be weird. Like I would actually be mad about that. It would make arguing about it online very hard because everyone would share X-Men 266 with Gambit and Little Storm, and they'd be like, look, it's comic accurate. And I'd be like, but also you can clearly see the problem of why you shouldn't be this woman's dad. Like Storm has such a specific origin that making Gambit her dad, I would actually have beef with. But it did not represent my larger point, which was lovers. So I guess it would be I don't know, who's not Gene and Scott that have a romantic relationship. Wolverine being Storm's dad? I think that would be dumb too. Would you be interested in covering the failed Pride of the X-Men pilot with the predecessor? So Pride of the X-Men and Generation X are two shows turned movies that I'm going to react to on the Patreon. I've sworn to this many times. I've had the plan to do it since August. I've not released a Patreon exclusive since I think July. I'm so sorry. We're going to do it. And they're both going to come out. It's going to be maybe at this point, I guess the November and the December exclusives. It's happening. I just have to. But my issue is I used to be ahead of Rejects because I took that like big break before season 2, right? But my partner, my fiance, had her birthday and everything, which was great during the week I took for ReaX3. So now I'm just like horribly behind. And I'm finishing every video the night before the next, like it comes out. So I've had no time to like, today we'll do Patreon because I don't need something done tomorrow. If you had to form a 5-character X team to operate for a couple years of films, who would you go for? Any mutants free? I always kind of dodge this answer, but I would want the team to shift around. I wouldn't want the same 5 in every movie. I think the coming and going of X-Men is a very core aspect of the X-Men. I want the Mutant Massacre movie more than anything. I did a very bad job pitching that on the Escape Pods Patreon because, I don't know, I'm bad on the spot. But Mutant Massacre is the movie I want more than anything on this earth. But non-X-Men, Kraven's Last Hunt. Spider-Man in general, I think, is the other character I have the most amount of ideas on what you could do with, and they don't do with it. I have a really, I'm not going to say it, I want to write Spider-Man in some capacity one day. Oh, give me a one shot. I don't know. It's like what every comic creator wants to do, you know? I'm not a comic creator, but, aspiring. Everyone wants to write Spider-Man, but I feel like I have a good angle on Spider-Man that no one's ever done. And so one day, hopefully, the Nikhil Clayton Spider-Man run that everyone hates because no one ever likes a Spider-Man run. Gambit, Leash. You forgot Han. Do a dream DCU movie. I do, and it's Guillermo del Toro's Justice League Dark that was supposed to happen in the old universe. This is my only restore the Snyderverse take. I don't even need Snyder. I just the DCEU had Guillermo del Toro on deck to make Justice League Dark. How did we not get that? You write Spider-Man. Do you try to convince editorial to bring back the marriage? I don't think I'd have that level of sway. Do you like Trantham's Gambit? I like it for what it is. I like it for, in that movie, a parody of the fact he never got to have a movie. I do not need him in any further X-Men project. I will give grace for Doomsday because I think it's just an extension of the Deadpool and Wolverine thing. When we get like X-Men 1, X-Men 2, like we're getting the movies. We know we are. I'm going to be annoyed. I know that, and I would have just said that record out straight up here. I'm going to be annoyed by them, but I would prefer a different Gambit regardless. Thoughts on Rogue Magneto relationship for X-Men 97? I think people got way too fucking carried away with that shit. I thought it was fine. First of all, you have to understand, again, from a comics perspective, Rogue and Magneto predate Rogue and Gambit. Rogue and Magneto had a relationship before Gambit existed as a character. Is it a little weird? Yes. Is it weirder in the show? Also, yes, because they explicitly have to put it in the past. In the comics, it happens in the flow of the comics. Rogue is a full-grown adult. She's been on the team for like 20 years and then has a relationship with Magneto. That I think it's fine. And it makes a lot of sense, honestly, for both of the characters. Making Magneto a hot anime boy named Joseph a little later probably worked a little better. But in the show itself, it is admittedly weirder because they have to throw it in the past when she's younger. And they do like a hot for teacher thing. That is strange. But also, they never do anything in the show. She picks Gambit. That's the other thing. Everyone's always like, oh, she was mean to Gambit. No, she wasn't. Magneto's like, will you pick me or pick Gambit? And she's immediately like, I pick Gambit. And then Gambit dies. And then all the other stuff was Madeline fucking with their minds. They never did any of that. Like the Danger Room thing, they're not really in there. They say earlier in the episode that those two are on patrol that night. And that's why they're not there to fight Madeline. Like seeing them in the office, that didn't happen. Like they're never hooking up throughout the course of the show. It is one conversation about how they already know each other. And then the one conversation at the Hellfire Gala where he asks her to choose and she picks Gambit. Like it's not a relationship. It is the implication of a past relationship, which admittedly is weird. That's my hot take on X-Men 97, Rogue Nito. I will say, I hold grace. X-Men 97 Season 2 is allegedly exploring Rogue Nito a lot more. Perhaps I will change my tune when I see that. I don't know. But as of now, it's not a thing. She thought about it, but like before that moment, she picks Gambit is the point. Here's the thing. I'm a huge Gambit stan. Maybe I'm biased, but watching that series, at no point did I think she was picking Magneto. Like there was no moment where I was like, damn, she's really going to leave Gambit in the lurch here. Like every time she had a thought about it, I was like, clearly she's picking Gambit. She clearly loves Gambit. Her and Gambit's conversation is like the best Rogue Gambit content we've gotten in years. In any medium. Like since Mr. and Mrs. X. Apparently there's twink Magneto named Joseph that I didn't know about. Yes, that is from the 90s when they wanted someone who could more directly compete with Gambit in this love triangle. And they just made basically Gambit again, but with long Fabio hair. Having Scott talk to Logan about his crush on Jean and then have Logan tell him to just confess already feels like a very targeted shade of their relationship usually is. Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of 97 is not a continuation of the X-Men the Animated Show, but rather either a direct adaptation of the comics or a commentary on the comics and the fandom. Like, also, Scott specifically does not abandon Nathan. Like, that's one of the biggest issues in X-Men history is Scott abandoning Madeline and sending his son to the future. This show takes so much time to show that that's not what happened, to help redeem Scott's character. Gambit goes out saving the Morlocks, also fixing his greatest sin from the comics. Like, so much of that show is being like, what if actually all these horrible editorial mandates didn't happen and we could just have these characters act like these characters? And that's why, personally, I love it a lot. Some things are deeper than skin share, not this was the closest thing to her choosing Magneto, and she regretted saying that. Yes, but also like it's also an admission that Gambit is the right choice. Like even that line, the whole sell of Magneto is that she can touch him. Being deeper than skin means that love is more important, you know? Oh, but she's saying not this, which is the thing. Right, I had the opposite things. Gambit would be saying share. But still, even that line, from like a narrative perspective, suggests that Gambit's the right option. And she does regret saying that. Any notable big sister, little sibling dynamics in X-Men? Via retcon, there's a lot of Rogue and Kitty. not so much in the actual comics that it was happening, but they love to go back and address that Rogue and Kitty were close like that. Storm and Kitty are more usually seen as mom and daughter, but you could read them as just mother or as older sister. And then who else is around who's really older sisterly to someone else? I'm trying to think of dynamics between two women, and it is kind of annoying how difficult it is, even in the X-Men. Storm and Jean, I don't think there's an older dynamic to it. They're definitely sisterly. Laura and Gabby is a great shout. Thank you very much, Calvin Allen. Laura and Gabby, literal older sisters. Well, I guess actually clones, so they're not literal either. But they're definitely an older, younger sister dynamic. And they're great. Nikhil, name 100 women challenge. Could I name 100 X-Men women? I feel like I could get close. This might be too nitpicky, but I feel like Nightcrawler's Bamps and Evolution don't have the pizzazz I expect to see when he teleports. It's just a white dot and 2 lines of smoke. I think as long as there's smoke, you're fine. Personally, I don't need a whole bunch of. I guess there could be more like of a sucking in situation, but like of like the air rushing in or rushing out. But I think it's fine. I don't need a ton from the Bamps, to be fully honest. Jean and Maddie are sisterly now for like maybe 3 issues throughout all of time. I would not generally describe that as their dynamic. Their usual dynamic is more person horrifying psychic succubus. It's not great for Maddie. I don't think that nobody pinches their nose when he bamps. They do. They do, though, which is what's crazy. I put that on the finale ReaX video. When he bamps into the crowd with Toad, everyone in the crowd runs away holding their nose. Even Toad in the very first episode, like, makes this motion after he bamps. They do it every now and then. What does Bobby have to explain code to Beast? Isn't Beast a genius? I think it was just supposed to be an okay boomer bit. It was 2002. The internet was brand fucking new. They were trying things. Beast is supposed to be an older guy. That was the whole joke. Millennials really thought they were the shit. Who's morally worse in the comics? Xavier or Beast? Beast by far. I vaguely remember Armor having a family style thing with someone, but it's been too long. I don't know anything about Armor, to be honest. That is all in like the dead area of my X-Men knowledge. I got X-Men knowledge pretty well into the early 2000s, drop off hard, pick back up in like the mid 2010s. All the in-between shit I got to go figure out again. Also, Bobby's code doesn't work. Yeah, that's the other thing. He's being boisterous about his code, and then it fails. Do you play Marvel Rivals? I played back in the summer, and I will probably hop back on when Gambit's in it. Do you miss the Krakoan era? Because I really do. Oh, for sure. Why is Bobby so much younger than the others? Because they picked the ages out of a hat. I think Bobby vibes younger. He's the youngest of the original team, so that's like supposed to be his usual dynamic, and he's just kind of stuck in that. It is very weird to see him younger than like Kitty, but it is what it is. Out of the original lineup, in the first series of Evolution, Scott, Jean, Kurt, Rogue, Kitty, and Spike, who would you switch out? Who would you switch them with, and why? Again, if we wanted to just be more comic-y, I think I would take Kitty out. Or I guess I would take Spike out as well. But you take Spike, you take Kitty out, you put Storm in, and you make Rogue more like Kitty, you make Storm more like Rogue, and then, honestly, who can replace Spike then at that point? Who's another? Maybe you keep no, because Kitty's a similar beat. Maybe you somehow keep Spike as like a different thing. Elevate Berserker as your Morlock stand-in. Bobby could work in Spike's place. Yeah, I could see that. All right, there we go. That's what I would do. Why do you think Wolverine gained so much popularity, becoming the most well-known X-Men character? Because he had cool-ass fucking knife hands. Wolverine was always meant to be the cool guy. Like, but even in giant-size X-Men, they know Wolverine's the fucking standout. He's the edgy one. He's the badass. He loves to kill. It's very Punisher-y, you know? Like, he was always going to be the one that teen boys who were reading these, who at the time they thought were reading these comics, were attracted to. There's a reason he gets the solo spinoff before I think any other X-Men. Fact check me, but I feel like he's the first X-Men to get a solo, and it's because he was always kind of the coolest, and because he got that solo, and because he started integrating into the rest of the Marvel world and everything. He just already was one of the most popular. He's not someone, I think, that the movies didn't hurt him by any means. But even by the time of like the animated show and stuff, they knew Wolverine was the star. And then when the movies came out, they knew Wolverine was the star. And then Hugh Jackman was good. And then they just kept making more. And then they made the Wolverine solo films. And then he just kept being the cool one. Like, at a certain point, you're the most popular because you're the best one at the end of the day, you know? Please put your hands together for our newest breakout character, Thunderbird. One could hope in a world. I have a confession. I never really cared for Wolverine's storyline. He hasn't got me hooked yet. He just seems like a grumpy man with claws. P.S. IRL Wolverines are so cute. I think we've gotten too bogged down in Weapon X as a culture. I think Wolverine needs to go back to Madripoor or Japan or something and fight ninjas and vampires and the undead, something else. I think always keeping him in this like government experiment bubble has hurt him in the public eye, where people think that's all Wolverine's got going. I'm excited. The game has his bar in Madripoor, so that seems like we might be getting some of that. We did get one Japan movie in the Wolverine, which I thought was pretty good. I need Wolverine to expand beyond Weapon X. That can't be the only story we tell with this fucker. Even in X-Men Evolution, we're just doing Weapon X. Just move on. He's got a whole rogues gallery that has nothing to do with those fuckers. Are you still planning on streaming Wolverine when it's out? I don't know. We will see where my life is at that point. I feel like I'm going to be too busy. The other thing is, people forget because it's been a year, and that's fine. The reason I stopped doing Twitch was because I wanted to focus on the YouTube channel, and it was taking the same like time. Like Twitch is like a long commitment. You got to stream for like 4 hours or whatever every like 2 days. Like, you know, I forget what I did. I think it was like twice a week. I streamed for like, it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays. I streamed for 3 hours. And then I did a live show beforehand to get people to go to the Twitch. So it was 4 hours every 2 days. That was insane. And so I don't think the YouTube worked. The Twitch never worked. The YouTube worked. We're all here now. And so we'll see if I go back onto streaming. We'll see. One thing I did consider, and I don't know if this would be fun for anyone, because you have to remember that I'm bad at video games, was playing it straight through. Like just starting a stream, starting Wolverine, playing until I beat Wolverine. For me, guys, that's like a month. Usually. Like when it took me, I think 2 months or something like that to play Spider-Man on Twitch. To the point that Panda Red messaged me. It was like, it's like a 12-hour gameplay game. It like sent me the picture. It was like, how are you just now finishing? But so I don't know if the saddest thing is if I announce that's what it is, and then I'm on live for like 24 hours and we're still like a third of the way through the story. That would be devastating. So I don't know if it's a reasonable take, but that's the one fun idea I've thought of, is to just dedicate like a day and play all of Wolverine. But yeah, also it's been over an hour. I have to go edit for the video that's coming out on Monday on Patreon. So I will say adios to all of you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for coming to these streams. I really do enjoy doing them. And I promise from now on, they will actually be after the show. Adios.